What happens to our consciousness when we're asleep at night? Are we in contact with people that have been physically focused that are now not physically focused, like what we call dead people? Are we hanging out with our friends and relatives and our spirit guides while we're out of body at night? Where do we go and what do we learn and what's it all about? Well, we're going to find out today with the wonderful Claudia Watts Edge. She attends spirit school at night, and her spirit guides have been bringing these lessons, if you like, this information, this knowledge to humanity to help uplift the consciousness. Stay tuned.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
G'day, and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain, awakening and expanding consciousness on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, syndicated radio, hitting about 120 countries, according to Joe, and through 107.7 and 105.3 FM. And we are on 8 platforms, streaming on 8 platforms, and we've got a little audience all saying hello. I haven't got to you guys yet. G'day. Oh, I've got the gals here. Love it. Shirley and Mish, and more to join. And my guest today is Claudia Edge. Claudia Watts Edge, welcome to the show.
Hi. So I'm so excited to be here. We're just talking old friends, right?
Old friends. Well, Claudia and I got together back in early 2022, I think, and I had her on the show, and then she was a guest in my inner sanctum. I used to do monthly Zoom groups. I haven't done it this year because these shows are live and we've got people that can ask questions on the live. I haven't done the inner sanctum this year. You know, you can ask your questions. I wanted to have a participatory show where people could meet the guest and ask them questions. So that was the inner sanctum. But now I do that every week on the live shows where you can meet the guest and ask questions. So I met Claudia back then, and I know that she listens to the show because I often see you online. So it's great to have you back on the show. I remember seeing you in the chat and I'm like, you got to come back on the show. So,
awesome.
So for people that don't know about Claudia, let me tell you a little bit about what happened. So Claudia Watts Edge had a profound NDE back in 1984 during the birth of her baby daughter when they died together. Ever since that day and event, Claudia has been researching NDEs and spiritual phenomena. And after a desire or a calling to know more, she became a participant at Spirit School as Claudia's guides relay enlightening messages for humanity when she is out of body during her nightly adventures. She's written a few books, a couple of books, 3 books. I was just asking her, it looks like 4 books, relaying the messages that she gets from Spirit School, from the guides, gifts from the Edge, We Touched Heaven, and Lessons from the Edge. And all fabulous books. And Claudia has been called a modern day mystic with the ability to pull back the curtain between the worlds and beyond. And her website is her name, claudiaedge.com. So let's go back to 1984 and find out what happened, what prompted these millions of questions in you to find out more when you gave birth to your daughter.
Well, it was a normal pregnancy and I was due in a couple of days. And for some reason, blood was entering the placenta in the uterus. It's between the mother and the baby, but it was not exiting. And I was just lightheaded, didn't quite feel well. And I just kept hearing a whisper to go to the hospital and be checked out. And so I hadn't been in the hospital for more than about 5 minutes. And I had to say, I'm no, I'm not really having contractions, but there is, I'm not feeling great. There's something wrong. And I just feel prompted to come and see you guys. And they almost sent me away, but I persisted, and they sent me back to put a gown on for an exam. And the placenta had reached full load and it exploded. And
whoa.
yeah.
God.
It was like a 5-pound bucket of water, just spilling everywhere, all over the floor, the walls, her uniform, myself.
Glory.
It was like an episode of The Shining. And the look on her face, and I was standing there in no pain. I'm just like, this is kind of unusual. I've done this before with births, and this has never happened to me before.
Wow.
So it became a situation of life and death. And they had told my doctor I wasn't even having contractions, so don't bother coming in. And they let him know. And so it was about 10:30 at night. And so there were no surgeries being performed. The hospital was very quiet. There had been a birth earlier, and that OB had gone home. So it was just kind of a quiet floor when all of a sudden this code came, and they were looking for someone to come and basically save my life. They found an intern, and, he came and looked at the room and went, shocked and without using the hospital speak of, keeping the patient calm. He just came in and said, "Oh my God, this woman's got, like, by the looks of the blood in the room, she's got 2 minutes of life left." And I was just young and 30 years old, and not in pain. I'm dying. It was quite a reckoning to, there was, they were threw me down in the gurney and trying to figure out. They knew they had to deliver this baby. I was running out of time. I was going blind, and the room was starting to come in. And I recognized from some reading that of NDE's that I went, "Oh, must be the tunnel that I've heard of." And so, yeah, I hear a question.
So you had already knew about NDEs back in '84. You'd researched them already.
Well, my father, I lost my dad when I was 16. I adored my dad, and I was looking for them in any book, any reference material. So I was already studying Dr. Moody's work when this happened, because he was 1980, I believe.
Yeah, okay.
50 years this year. We're celebrating 50 years of Dr. Raymond Moody's research.
Wow,
so,
amazing.
Very cool there. So I knew a little bit. I'd heard, tunnel, and then you go to the light. And so as I'm reconciling, I'm dying, and you go through those, shock and then anger, and then, till you finally get to a point of acceptance, the 5 stages of acceptance or whatever from a diagnosis like that. I thought, oh, well, at least I'm going to go see my dad soon. That was kind of like the highlight is, well, I'm going to go see Dad. And I gave myself over to this intern who was kind of going through a script, a pamphlet thing on how to deliver emergency C-sections. There was no anesthesia anesthesiologist on the floor. So they were going to do it in the raw. They held down my arms and legs. I didn't even have an aspirin or a warm blanket or an operating theater. It was right there in that examination room that they cut me from stem to stern, held down my arms and legs, and took that baby. So,
wow.
Yeah. It hurt a lot. When I'd said earlier there was no pain, there was some definite pain now.
Yeah. Gosh.
And when they got to the baby, and there's a lot of steps that they go through, you know, to get there. And my legs were primed to just jump and run off that gurney. But my mind was saying, save my baby. I had told him, save my baby, because I knew I was dying. I didn't want her to die. And so I was allowing this. So I was laying as still as I possibly could to allow this to happen. At the same time, I'm going, you know, holy moly, this hurts, you know. It's like, oh my God, get me out of here. So that was quite a juxtaposition of, you know, thought pattern for me there. But as I said earlier, the walls were coming in, the ceiling had popped off, and I was going backwards. And everything in the room, the doctors and nurses just kept getting farther and farther away until I did a pop.
Okay.
Pop. I was out. It was a soft pop that everything was all right. Everything was calm. There was no pain. There was no fear. It was pleasant. I mean, it was just such an opposite feeling of what I was going through.
Yeah.
And I became curious within the hospital. I kind of floated around. I hadn't even noticed that I was floating, but wherever my cognizance wanted to go, I was there. I passed by my husband, who was filling out forms, insurance card, driver's license, all of that. And, I remember feeling, this is going to be hard. This is going to be hard on my family. And I was chasing some music that I had heard as the walls were going in, and I was trying to be calm. I was focusing on music, and it happened to be the theme song from MASH. And so I'm floating down the hallway. No one is paying any attention to me. In fact, I was up a little higher, and you know those the old school clocks that stuck out from the wall. Well, I remember being above that clock, and you know, in your kitchen, no matter how much you clean it, if you've got a cupboard or something above the stove, how it's got that sticky stuff.
Yes, grease.
You never clean it. Yeah. And so I'm not calling the hospital dirty, because it wasn't that it was dusty, but I actually saw that stickiness at the very, very top of that clock.
That's too funny.
And I ended up in the room with a gentleman that had the TV on. He was asleep, but MASH was playing. And I thought, oh my goodness, it's 10:30, because MASH always followed the evening news. I was in Utah at the time, and so I knew that it was 10:30. And when this gentleman, he was kind of doing an awake sleep kind of thing, and I leaned over in his face and I did this just to play with him, I guess. And he didn't react. And it was then that I went, oh my goodness, I'm dead. I'm, nobody's noticing me. And as soon as I thought that, there was another quick snap, and I was in a place of complete darkness. It was the most beautiful, perfect darkness, completely black. And I was so happy to be there. It was peaceful, and it knew me. I could tell that it held intelligence, and it swaddled me. Like I was so perfectly fine within this darkness that I could have stayed forever. It loved me unconditionally. It knew everything about me, and it was just going to protect and hold me. But I could hear this entering of Claudia, your baby girl is alive, and she needs you. You need to come back. And the sound was so scratchy, itchy, earth voice against this perfectness that I was pushing it away. I didn't want it, and I felt like I just wanted to wrap myself more in the darkness. And eventually, I thought the only way I'm going to get rid of this voice is to tell it I'm okay. But as I was trying to form words from a mouth that I really didn't have a mouth, I was a complete consciousness. I was completely me. My personality, the things I held funny, the way I felt about the world, everything was exactly the same. So I wasn't minus anything up there, except for an ability to use my mouth to communicate to Earth. And as I was trying to form words to say, I'm okay, leave me alone, again, a snap. And I was back in my body. I was back in the pain. It was a hard slide into the awful. It was awful. And I was kind of mad about it too, I gotta say. But
So,
yeah.
So you came back into the pain of being operated on without anesthetic.
Exactly.
That would have been a big shock, coming from, oh, whoa.
Yeah.
And did you see the soul of your baby daughter during that time? Because it says here in the bio that you died together.
Yes. She drowned in my blood when they lifted her little lifeless body from me, and I could see that it was lifeless. That was at the point where I was going backwards, and I saw the awfulness and the condition of the room. I mean, it was like a war zone in there. That's when I popped out. And I learned later that she had drowned in my blood, so they were treating her basically as a drowning victim. And they did revive her, and then they put her on watch where if she makes it an hour, if she makes it 2 hours, if she makes it the next 5 hours, and that grew for a couple of days. I was unaware of it, but that's what they were going through with her. And I'll interject here that she's perfect. She came beautifully perfect, and she's my last baby for sure.
Does she have any memory of that experience?
Oh, I meant to tell you that. I've asked her several times, and I have been asked, was it a shared death experience? And what I got from my guides finally, because I was looking for some kind of an answer, and I was told because she had not yet taken an earthly breath because she died in the womb, that she was not considered of earth. So she hadn't, I don't know, just didn't have to make that trip, I guess.
Yeah. It's interesting what we call near-death experiences, because Claudia and I were chatting before, as we do, and and I described her spirit school at night as out of body, and she said, "Oh, I've never described it as out of body, because everyone is out of body. Everyone's out of body at night." So we make this differentiation, like we call it near-death experience if something dramatic has happened to push us out of body. We don't call it near-death experience when we fall asleep every night. And when do we call it near-death experience? Like if you've not taken an earthly breath, because the soul has the ability or the consciousness of moving in and out of the physical body while in utero.
Yes.
Yeah, or even not, like, no, don't want to do the utero thing. I'll pop in,
pop in right at the end, and
when the baby's born, and even some don't even pop in then. There's the consciousness of the body that is alive, and the soul can like come and go. I mean, there are some babies that are born and die, and no soul has actually even entered the body.
The soul changed its mind and went, nah, I'm not coming for this trip.
Yeah. So what is life and death? It's all really one thing, but we on earth, we're just sorting all this out. So according to, that is just such a traumatic experience. Whoa.
Yeah.
work. I'd love to regress your daughter and find out what was your
Really,
soul
that
thinking.
would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you, is she into your
No.
spiritual? No. Is that I think I asked you that
I'm
last.
out here as the black sheep of the family.
Oh my
I
God. What about hubby? What about hubby?
No, he'll look at me like I'm growing antlers sometimes when I tell him some of my dreams. I wait until we're in the hot tub so he can't run. And then I go, guess what I dreamed last night? And he'll just look at me with kind of a pleading face, like, don't make me.
Don't make me listen.
It's not that he doesn't get me or that he does, he totally believes me and is supportive, but he's a young soul. I'm old. It's like, and I'm 8 years older than he is. So he's young both ways. And so this isn't his gig right now. And so.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm thinking that the trauma of your experience had to happen in order to validate all that you know. If you just said, gee, I'm having these funny dreams at night, they could dismiss you even more, right? Oh, yeah, she's just having funny dreams. But when you go through such a trauma as you went through, people have to stop and sit up and listen, like, whoa, that happened. And that's probably the meaning behind all these tragic NDEs, near-death experiences. Like when people go through this, God, I've spoken to people like, Nancy Rhines, who was hit by a truck and she broke 24 bones multiply and you was in hospital. Like when you've gone through that amount of trauma and you have these spiritually expanding experiences, then people really listen to you. Like, what does it take to open people's minds? I mean, how much trauma do we need in order to make people listen?
Well,
whoa.
Interestingly, when I woke up, and because of such a blood loss, I mean, I was being transfused constantly, of more and more blood was coming into the room. And I really was probably not in a good condition to talk about it, but I was asked about it. I was in a teaching hospital and they knew I had died. It was kind of like, when you died, did you see anything, hear anything, can you tell us something about what you went through? And I had not gathered my thoughts in that, yet. As you know, it sometimes takes years for people, especially through trauma, to even kind of get a hold of what happened to them.
Absolutely.
But there was kind of I felt a negativity of saying I was in blackness, right? It's kind of like people equate darkness for bad and lightness for good. And did you go to the light? Did you see the light? And I was like, no, I was in complete blackness, and it was wonderful. It was an expanse of beyond anything I could even describe. It was infinity. It was intelligent, but those things kind of fell to the wayside. So as you were talking about wanting to share your experience, I got busy hiding mine. I was a closet NDE'r for 25 years because my experience was so perfect. It was sacred and beautiful, and it was mine. And I just kept it pushed down. It's like, I'm not going to let opinion soil this experience. Yeah. So when I'd hear other experiences, it was like, what's wrong with me? How come I didn't go to, why didn't I see grandma? And it's like, oh yeah, why didn't I see my dad? Or why didn't I go to the beautiful grasses and garden or the river of life or those things? So I started kind of feeling down on myself, like maybe I wasn't good enough, or quite confused. I knew that it wasn't anything negative, but it was kind of like, I was, kind of curious of why I didn't have that story to tell. And it took like 25 years before I started going to spirit school. And I kept asking, please show me more. Are there memories did I go through something more? Because I really feel like I did. And I would ask if I have had, can I please have memories? and they were coming out in dreams. And I would ask my guide afterwards, are these new experiences or are they memories of what I went through then? And he just kind of laughed at me and said, does it make any difference? And I was like, well, I guess not. I'll take them either way, brand new or whatever. So when I'd wake up, and I would call it spirit school. It was just easier for me.
Yeah. Yeah, Shirley's got a question here. What are you saying? So were they interested but judged you because it was a lovely darkness? I don't know who they are. I think, are you talking about her family? I think that, Claudia, you were the one that judged yourself, though.
Exactly.
Because you listened to all these amazing NDEs. Like, I saw my family and my guides and gardens and heaven and castles and you know, Catholic regular, and you thought, oh, why didn't I see?
Where's my story? Where's my
story?
Yeah. So yes, I judged myself. I did feel a little bit of I'll say negativity, but it's kind of a letdown because I was a perfect candidate for a great NDE story because I was in the hospital. I was not taking any kind of drugs or even caffeine. I was pregnant. Right. Not even an aspirin. Yeah. And then there was no anesthesia or anything, to go, well, she was, had drugs on the brain or whatever. And so I was a very clean candidate for a really good research project. And I had nothing to say. Until
the guides came to the rescue and said, all right, you want information? We're going to give you information.
Now I can't stop talking.
Nice. So how many years after the NDE did you start to remember your nightly lessons?
As we were talking about nightly dreams and that we leave our body and that we do have experiences, I started just dreaming kind of things that you would say, oh, that was a weird dream, or, I can't remember, but then you'd lay there and go, well, I was doing this or that. I started journaling everything. I'd wake up and write down what I was dreaming. And it grew to where my dreams grew. And I was in I'll call it just a regular dream one night. And I noticed, how to explain when you're dreaming, you're there participating, but you can sometimes see yourself as participating and you're kind of, out of yourself. And anyway, I saw in the corner of this happening, this really odd guy flitting around in a fairy costume with a wand and a hairy back and a tutu with a cigar in his mouth, and it was so weird. And so he was pulling my attention out of the regular dream, our nightly, what we last saw on television and
exactly.
Some things, and helping me become lucid within my dreams. I didn't hear him speak, but he'd hold up a sign that would say, pay attention to this. Or eventually he said, come with me. And I learned how to exit without waking up out of that dream. I, kind of put the dream on pause or something and leave. And I found myself in sometimes it was a hallway with classrooms, like it looked like a college, or something with a theater of seats. And we would go through all kinds of, and also there would be a sign above the door as we entered. The class would have a name, this is cause and effect, and, things like that. But he also pointed out that these are presented as a parable or a metaphor, that this isn't exactly the way it is on the other side, but it is something for me to grasp, to understand, and to be able to, and be able to hold it enough to get it back into my life the next morning, jot it down, and then present it to an audience. it was really pressed upon me that I was to share these lessons. I call them lessons, from, and using my last name, Lessons from the Edge and the Other Side. But so all of my books are like short stories or classrooms of things I learned while I was in spirit school.
Spirit school.
Yeah.
And so what was the first lesson that you remember them giving you that you wrote down and you thought, whoa, that's really profound?
Wow. Well, one of them was called layering and description, because I was asking why, we all have these questions, why are we here? Who are we? Who is God? What is God? Who is God to us? And just the same kind of questions that we go through. And so it was answered in this one particular school of, just tell us, just give us the answers. And he shoved this weird pillow at me. It was round and it was a weird translucent brown, and it had little pink dots all over it. And it was really ugly. I'd seen it at a few of my friends' homes, so it was kind of familiar to me. But as he shoved it at me, he says, describe this for me. And I started to go, well, it's round and it's brown. And he goes, no. Pretend like I don't know what color is, what's round. I mean, everything that I started to explain, no, still don't understand. I don't know what brown is. I don't know what an onion is, because I had said it was kind of like an onion, like a layer of an onion, and it got browner at the top, where the leaves or whatever come out. I said, so, and I was trying to, and he was like, do you see how hard it is if I don't have the basics, if I don't have the foundation, how are you going to give me all of these hard, tough principles? And, it's like, you need to build a foundation so that you'll have some kind of understanding of what the heck we're going to talk about. Yeah. And it's not as human that we're stupid or anything. It's just we need these things. We're interested. Your audience is interested, or they wouldn't be here. We're seekers. We want those answers. And so, if I say anything tonight, Karen said anything tonight, that adds to that strength of your foundation, then we've done a really good job. So that was one of the first ones. And then oh, sorry.
So relaying the information is, the biggest challenge, really. I use people's stories to relay spiritual information, both my stories and I had a guy who was a client recently. His mother was a mystic, but he had a million questions and he didn't have a fundamental understanding. So he was throwing all these questions, and the guides were coming through me, and they said, when he understands this fundamental understanding of unity, had about 25 questions, like most of those questions will be answered because they're all based in the illusion of separation. So when we're thinking about, life and life after life, we're coming from a human perspective of separation. There's you and there's me, and we're separate. And the information coming is all wrapped in unity and quantum entanglement. And how do you relay that to a mind that only understands separation? It's just so important. It's so important. Yeah.
Or explain some of the horrible things that we go through in this life.
Exactly.
Why starvation and loss of a child and all of those things are, it's not thrown upon us as a punishment or anything like that. It's a learning experience and growth of, that we can advance advance spiritually. And we go through this on a volunteer level. Right. But when you say that and someone's like, I would not volunteer to lose my child, you're crazy. And it's like, I can I can give that information, but when I see tragedy in that, I try and look at what is the reason, and it's not, the state of California has been bad, so we're going to light it on fire.
Yeah,
it's not the way it goes.
The concept of punishment is so embedded in our collective perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a poet and I didn't know it, collective perspective. But
poet and you didn't know it.
that when we think about bad things that happen here on earth, even religion has perpetuated the thought that if you're good, you go to heaven. If you're bad, you go to hell. There is a punishment. There is a punishment or a karma. And to understand that bad things happen, like why do bad things happen to good people? Bad things happen because it's a lesson that the soul is wanting. It's an experience that the soul is wanting. I think that is probably one of the fundamental hardest things to get across to a collective mind that is rooted in good and evil and bad and punishment, reward and punishment, and
Or why does that person just seem to have one thing after the other that is just it's like, because you're not getting it yet. You haven't accepted or learned yet. And it's like, I have a son that sometimes I'm just like, oh, please give him a break. And it's like, please make him understand, that this is for his, I was going to say for his own good, but that sounds like a parental thing. And it's more for this is why he came. Right. I need to go through that. I need to learn this. I need to incorporate this.
Yeah.
So I just hope that he'll get it one day,
I have a friend who's had these beautiful, beautiful children. They're all, in their 40s now, but one of them went missing. They just lost him. And when they found him, he was homeless and he was sort of schizophrenic. And she kept asking me, can you ask your guides? Can you ask your guides? Is he going to be okay? Is he going to be okay? And it was so hard to get across, Claudia, that this is what the soul was choosing. Mm-hmm. Like he's choosing to have this experience and he's absolutely okay. To you, he doesn't look okay because he's lost and he's homeless and he looks kind of mad. Anyway, he died young, but before he died, he came back into the fold, back into the family, and they all reconnected, and that made them all really happy. And then he left, and then he, left the body. But the guides were saying that experience that he had here on earth is directly related to who he'll be in his next life. Like he's explored that part of life because he has a desire to sort of address that in another life. So there's continuation of life, that when you experience something in one life that doesn't look like what, a happy experience, there is desires burst that will be fulfilled in other lives. And it's hard to wrap our human minds around that sometimes because we just see suffering. Yeah.
The books written by Betty Eadie that had that profound NDE in the 1970s, Embraced by the Light. So many of us have read her book. And she was shown from the other side, someone that we would call a bum, a panhandler on the corner, alcoholic, just basically laying on the sidewalk. And then she was shown his soul. This magnificent, amazing soul had taken on this job here, this life here, as being, what others would deem a disgusting human being.
Right.
But there was a man, I want to say was a lawyer, but it's been a while since I've read the story, but that would walk past him every day at lunch. And they were like best friends or soul group on the other side. And this soul did that for him to learn grace, and he began charities and things like that. It eased him into I've got to help others, and it was because he had to pass this guy every single day. And I thought that was such a profound lesson in not judging, somebody else, because there's a reason that they're doing this or going through this, or so that was a big lesson.
Big lesson. Yeah. Well, darling one, let's go to Spirit School. Let me just do a station ID break. Where are we? I made a recording. Let me see if I can use the recording. So I've been talking about making a recording for a station ID break for ages. Here we go. You're listening to ATP Media, Awakening and Expanding Consciousness with Karen Swain on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 FM and 105.3 FM, syndicated radio hitting about 120 countries and streaming on 8 platforms. And my guest today is Claudia Watts Edge, and we are at Spirit School. Was it a bit loud, the recording? Was it too loud?
It sounded great.
Oh, okay. So tell me in the comments if it came across so loud. So that's the first time because, I have to do the station ID break. And I'm like, I should make a recording so I don't have to repeat myself. Let's go to Spirit School. What do people in the chat want to know about who you are, why you're here? Yep, we're going to put you to Spirit School. So what questions did you start asking, or did they just give you stuff and rather than you asking?
I would say it was more given. I think it was in the building of foundation for me. One of the times on the stage were a number of boxes, and I look at it now as like Zoom or something, but they were in my Spirit School. It was like a physical box, and it was a real person in there. So I would say Zoom is kind of a much better explanation than when I went through it. But the people had either decorated their boxes with flowers, like holding a bouquet of flowers and putting flowers all over, and some had a completely blacked out screen, and some were standing there full open face, open heart, and holding a little little bag, I guess. Anyway, so they were asking me how I felt about these boxes and the representations of the people in them. And they wanted me to understand that there are, to be able to differentiate between these people and what they put out front, because the ones in hiding kind of behind the flowery boxes, behind the flowery sentences, and saying the right things and showing, wearing the right clothes or whatever, could be really fragile, that really needed more, but they put themselves out there in that form. And then the ones that had blacked out the screen were the ones who really, really needed some attention and some love and understanding, but they were also, because they had stood back and emptied out their screen, that they were going to be the hardest to reach, the ones who needed it the most. And the ones that were just open and they were holding, and I'm going to say satchel, because that's what it was. I didn't know at the time what that little bag was, but and the words that came out were, look for the ones with an open heart and who carry a satchel, and the words, carry your ego in a small satchel. So those who are not bound by a huge ego, but keep it centered, keep it square, open heart, little satchel, small ego.
Wow.
Yeah, that was cool.
That's interesting. When I was a young girl, there was a boy that was a boyfriend of a friend of mine who was very tall and slender and fabulously dressed, right? But to me, he was the biggest snob. He sort of walked with his head in the air, but he always looked fabulous. But he was so snobby, and I just, as this young girl, I just hated him. I'm like, oh, you disgust me. You're awful. Like, you're such a snob, always judging people. You look fabulous, but you're such a snob. Anyway, long story short, one night we were at a nightclub, one of the ones I used to frequent when I was young. And we were sitting at the bar getting drunk together, and we were laughing so hard he fell off the stool. I'll never forget that. But he revealed to me that night in his drunken state that he was the most intensively shy, insecure person. And that this whole snobbiness was his act, his armor, if you like, the way that he protected himself in the world. And it was a huge epiphany for me as this young girl in my 20s that, don't take people at face value.
Exactly.
And it was such a lesson. And I'm like, whoa, I have judged you so harshly. I didn't know him for very long, but at the time I've known you as being this horrible person because you were so snobby. But this is just a way that you are protecting yourself because you're so sensitive and shy. And likewise, I have a friend at the same time, sister who's a gay woman who is so rough on the outside, so hard and rough, and like sort of, she looks like she wants to box you, but that she's so, again, sensitive soul, like such a soul heart. And now, as an older woman, she's got charities and she's feeding people and she's doing all this fabulous stuff. Yeah, so don't judge a book by its cover. That's the lesson you were getting at spirit school, right?
Exactly. Oh my goodness. I had, and it was a real life experience where I was coming out of a fast food joint, and I was in my early 60s, and there was a kid, black kid that was about 16 or something. And as I came out, he gave me this smile, and it was so uncharacteristic of generations. And, because as you get older, you become invisible, and kids, they don't look at you or whatever. And to give me this look, and it went inside of me. It was like a soul to soul recognition. It was, I'll never forget how it made me feel. And it was very short. And as I got closer to him, and it was like, I think he realized that he was, shining at me, basically, that he hurried and turned around and looked down at his phone. But I thought, we got a chance to look beyond each other's skin. And that was an amazing experience that So I really try to not see, age, skin, whatever, because I try to look at each other as the soul we are. Soul. And we're magnificent. We are so big and wonderful and so intelligent, but we're here in this play. We've got a role to play, and we're here doing it.
Yeah, it's the role we're playing. Absolutely. You talked about the homeless man being the master spirit that had come to teach humility to his friend while incarnate. That's a story that we've explored a lot on the show with Garnet Schulhauser. He was and his spirit guide. But I asked him, I've been chatting to Garnet for a decade now, and I asked him years ago, like, does he still show up as the homeless man, like your spirit guide? He said, every time. Like every time. Like even when we're out of body, he's still presenting, this master spirit soul is still presenting as a filthy, dirty, unwashed, smelly homeless. I mean, like, is he still smelling? And Garnet laughed. I don't think that. But it's so interesting.
Well, I think that we run into, I hate the word tests here, because we're not failing at anything, but we are, of our own choosing being tested, I guess. And you can run into someone. I was traveling, and I needed to use the restroom, and I stopped at a fast food place. And as I was pulling in the parking lot, there was a homeless looking guy, looked like he was out hitchhiking. And I don't pick up hitchhikers, but I ran into the bathroom, and I came out, and I was looking for him because I wanted to buy him dinner or something. He looked like he could use, some cash or something. I'd only been in the bathroom for just a few moments. He wasn't there. He wasn't anywhere that I could see. I drove down the road and looked for him, and he wasn't there. And I really just had this feeling wash over me that I had experienced just a small test to see what I would do upon seeing, someone like that.
Right.
What did my heart feel? What did I want to do, or just totally ignore? And I think we run into a lot of those because, and I'm not going to say I know that we run into a lot of those because we're kind of running out of time here, with stuff going, and that's a whole nother show. But we're going through a lot of those type of tests and things in our dreams as well. A lot of lessons, things that there just isn't time for extra lives to come through for that. So they're being thrown into dream form and little physical things like that. So, if you're mindful of that, you'll pass.
You'll pass the test. Yeah, we're definitely at an accelerated pace right now, and it's coming thick and fast. I am finding everywhere I go, like every time I step outside the front door, I've got people asking me for healing. And a phenomena, just like in the last week or two, a phenomena I don't normally get because I'm not out there saying, hello, everybody, I'm a healer. There was a young man. I went to a meditation around the corner at a friend's place. I had seen him many times before. He's a lot younger than me. He's younger than my kids. And he just came up to me and started asking me a million questions, like he saw into my soul who I was. He's done a lot of healing courses, and I'm like, people are seeing me. It's really interesting when I'm not sort of out there saying, hello, this is who I am. I'm just normal me. And I just feel like it's all part of the acceleration. So for all those people online and listening on radio, if you've got this wisdom to share it, because people want it. Don't worry about looking crazy or stupid, or worry about if your family will understand you. Share it. People are wanting it.
I was in a TJ Maxx. I just visited my grandchildren. We were doing a bit of school shopping. Grandma was buying some fun things for them too. And they were trying on a lot of clothes with their mom. And I went to do a little bit of shopping for myself. And I got in line because I knew they might come up and get behind me because the line was really long. And as I walked to this person, and there's rows and rows and rows, 2, 4, 5, down to 12 helpers. And I went into this, kind of kiosk thing with this. And she said, who are you? What? You're different. What is? And I'm like, what? Yeah. And I said, I don't know. I had a near-death experience. I knew it. I knew you're shiny. You were just glowing. And that kiosk, I bought one item, and my grandchildren finished and got in line and it followed. I was with her for over 15 minutes. She said, I'm going to get in trouble, but what about this? What about this? And my grandkids noticed, and they're going, who was that lady you were talking to? She wouldn't let you go. And and when I said, well, she saw something in me, and it was like an opening for my family to go, gee, people are kind of paying attention to grandma for different reasons.
There you go. Yeah.
It was quite an experience. That just happened last week.
Yeah, I know. We're on extraordinary times. So ask Claudia, because I was thinking that the audience might have questions for Spirit School, but you're funny. I love your comments, but you haven't been asking any questions. If you've got questions, ask. I said, what do you want to talk about on the show? And she said, ask the guides. And she said, the stars. Let's talk about the stars.
All right, because I haven't shared this very much.
Okay, let's talk about it. What do they want to say about the stars?
So this is one where I was asking, is this a memory or is this new? And again, it was kind of like, does it matter? But I was going through, I was in a clear bubble. So I was completely safe. And my guide was next to me, and we were traveling the universe. We were in the stars. We were at a rapid pace, not what's the Star Trek one where it's so fast, it's boom. We could see we were approaching stars, and as we were approaching them, I could hear them. and they were saying, "It's Claudia, welcome back. Oh, we've missed you. Oh, how was it? Did you have a good trip?" And I mean, there was just this love pouring out, and I could hear it. And then the next star and the next star, as we went through, they were all alive and conscious and speaking
Whoa.
to me. And I'm looking, and it was wonderful afterwards because I didn't during our trip. But afterwards I was like, what was that? That was amazing. And he offered, he said, "Do you want to see Jeff's star?" Jeff is my brother. He is 1 year younger than me, and he's been in the gym every single day of his life, just about. He's in the sun, so he is oiled and brown, suntanned, and muscular, handsome guy, right? This is his thing. And so the guide is pointing, going, look right there. That's Jeff's star. And I'm looking, and this star did this kind of body show off thing. And I swear,
That's funny.
and I went, "Oh my God, that's Jeff. That's my brother." How, so then it's opened up this query of, are we stars? I mean, if that's Jeff's star, is that Jeff? I mean, I didn't, it was hard to reconcile what that meant. And I had had this dream that, sorry, I'm trying to put my thoughts together because there was another road I wanted to go to, and I'm going to do it in a minute. Is I was a kid in the late 50s, early 60s in the old Brownie camera, black and white film era. And what I was shown is school children, myself with a group of school children, being led by a gentleman in, the top hat and the oversized coat and everything that was showing me that the era that I was looking at was of my being around 8 years old. It wasn't necessarily the year, but it was who my age at the time this was happening. But I was inside a nebula of stars. And there were about 6 children and myself in a mezzanine above, again, metaphor and parable, right? This is the way it was shown to me, is that we were watching a star being created. And so we're on this mezzanine and looking over, and we were being called primaries. We were the primaries, and we had graduated enough in our physical progression that we were going to be getting our own star. So if that wasn't some big news right there. So on this mezzanine, we're watching the star in a tube, this molten ball being formed in metals and dust and dirt and chemicals, and the pressure being rolled. And as it rolled up, each child was given a chance to decorate their own star, to make that star their own. And there was a couple of children ahead of me that wanted her star to be pink. So she was doing all kinds of pink fluffy things to her star. And the boy in front of me really liked Lincoln logs, little wooden logs, and he was just putting them all over his star. He was claiming his star as a Lincoln logs star. I know it sounds silly, but it was showing me that we are given that chance, whether it is a part of, because I think you can help me, Karen, but it's, that it's a part of us, whether we go back to reside on that star, is that our home. But it was so real to watch when the God spark entered that star, when we had done our personal decorating and then it was brought to life by a God spark.
Yeah, I feel like it's explaining the expansion of the soul. As the soul has different experiences in the denser realms like Earth, and then learns about love in a totally different way. Because when you're swimming in unconditional love, you really don't know what it is until you experience the opposite of it. And I often talk about, the little soul in the sun. I want to have the lesson of forgiveness because it's a part of love I don't understand. And so you elect another soul to do something terrible to you on a denser plane, on the earth realm, so that you can understand the experience of forgiveness. And then you have an opportunity to forgive or not. And maybe you have that lesson lifetime over lifetime over lifetime until you really get forgiveness.
So those lifetimes are decorating the star?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow,
it's like your
that's
soul
cool.
starts shining brighter and brighter and gets bigger and bigger. And yeah, and this is what we understand as master souls when we talk about old souls and young souls, or because in the spiritual realms, there's no such thing as space and time. But when we're thinking about it from a linear mind perspective, we have to talk about it in space and time. So, yeah, going back to what right at the beginning when you said, trying to relay messages about the spirit realm to a human mind who is rooted in physicality, in space and time reality. So that's what it felt like to me. It felt like we're decorating our star with the experiences that we have on Earth.
That was, I like very much. I like very much. Well, I had one other instance where I was still asking, it's like I want complete knowledge. And what I was shown is we're looking at the sky and the stars, and all of a sudden the stars were getting faces. Nicole Kidman, Brad Pitt.
That's funny. They're like, we do call famous people stars, don't we?
They are stars. I don't know. And I laugh because the other side, this is how they interject. They are fun. They are jolly. They teach us with joy and jokes and pokes and all of that. It's, if you ever have a feeling of, did I just hear from, my guide or something, but it seemed negative or something like that? It wasn't. The guide is going to come. The guide is going to come in like a fairy smoking a cigar.
Absolutely. It's negative. It's your ego. It's your worry talking. It's not your guidance. But Mish says here is maybe that star is our higher self. Yeah, that's the feeling I got, Mish. It's like the higher self grows and grows and grows and grows as the different aspects of it live out all these millions of different lives in different realms and different planets. And it's just ever expanding and growing. Because I think that from our religious upbringing, we think that God is a fixed energy, a perfect fixed energy. And I think that with every experience that is happening, it's just too mind-boggling to think about. Because think about the multiverse and the cosmos and everything that's going on, like a Netflix channel with all these different stories happening and experiences. And there's an ever expansion of source energy.
Well, I loved your explanation of that. That was very helpful for me, for sure.
Yeah, I remember once, I've told this story many times, and something that you said earlier reminded me of it. When I was in my 30s listening to Oprah Winfrey, and there was a guy on the show who had been in a plane crash, and as he was exiting the burning plane, he was seeing bodies burning in their seats. But what he noticed, he was just a businessman, he could see the light leaving the body, and he said some lights were brighter than others, and he had no understanding of what he was seeing. But after that experience, he started going down the path, dived into the rabbit hole, looking for an explanation of what he was seeing, and he understood that the light that he was seeing was dim or bright according to the way people were living their lives. And he had changed his life completely. And he said, I want to be a bright light. I want to be a bright light. So it's a bit like your analogy of the stars, like the brighter the star gets. And dim light or a bright light. Who are you on earth? And like that lady saw your light in
it was great. Who are you?
I have a friend who he's not a teacher of this work. He's talked about it for many years, but he's a businessman and he shines so brightly. He just glows. He glows. He just glows. He really shines brightly because he's a beautiful person. And recently he got sick and I went over to give him a healing. And for the first time, I've known him for like 25 years, for the first time in my life, his light was dimmed because he'd been sick and he'd been sick for a while. And it was the first time I'd seen him with his light dimmed. And I'm like, whoa, I'm not used to seeing you with your light dimmed because he's normally so shiny. But yeah, he contacted me the other day and he said he was sick again. He's gone through a lot of health problems this year, but he posted photos on Facebook. He's still shining. Like he can be sick and still shining. Oh, hello, Joe. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How are you? Yeah, shine your bright light. Shine your light brightly. All right. So what else is happening? Stars in Spirit School. What else were they teaching you? Because yeah, go on.
Let's see. I wrote down a couple of things. One of the things I wanted to touch on was inadequacy, because I had put that on myself after my near-death experience.
Okay.
I felt inadequate to be speaking because I didn't have this great experience at first to talk about. And it started making me feel less than. And we talked about, our social, what we put out there and what we wear and our ego and everything. And I just, as I was flipping through the stories of my book, kind of like landing on a few things that I wanted to bring up today, was one of my spirit school lessons that was labeled being inadequate. And I was in a situation where I was going to go mountain climbing. I was with a group and we were going to do this day trip on this mountainside. It wasn't Everest or anything, but it was going to be, now again, metaphor, right? Parable. Yeah. And so I had dressed for the trip real cute. I had a really cute scarf and sweater and that on. And I thought I looked great. And when I got to the mountainside and we were all prepping, to get ready to go, I noticed, everybody was dressed in like REI clothes and, really good mountain climbing clothes. And I looked more like I was ready for a luncheon, And the more, I started fidgeting with my gear and looking down and bringing myself down, right? It was really affecting how I saw myself from the mirror that morning when I thought I looked great to now I'm like, oh, what was I thinking? And not feeling so very good about myself. Well, up drives this van and a woman was being lifted out of the van on a stretcher. She was going to climb the mountain by the use of pulleys and ropes and pulleys. And she was going to climb the mountain that way because she didn't have the use of her legs.
Wow.
She was dressed perfectly. She had on REA clothing, perfect mountain climbing clothing, but she was on a stretcher. And so she had devised a way to climb the mountain. And I thought, if that woman who can't walk doesn't feel inadequate here to climb this mountain, why am I letting myself feel that way? It was really a huge lesson that I woke up and went, I'm never going to look out there to what other people are doing or saying or, wearing or anything else. It was a huge lesson in ego and bringing your own self down into inadequacy, because we're not inadequate. So that was one that kind of flipped that I thought we might talk about today.
Yeah. There's a great saying, and I don't know who said it, but comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who said it, but Yeah, exactly. We compare ourselves to others and make ourselves less than because we're judging ourselves for less than. Yeah, that was a great lesson to see somebody without legs who's going to climb a mountain.
Yeah, yeah.
Got different.
She felt great about herself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, did that lesson stick? I mean, did you stop? Because I know that as we get older too, I find myself comparing myself to what I can and can't do as I get older and fatter and, more wrinkly.
Well, I think it was a really good lesson for me to let go of. So your story wasn't perfect in the beginning, stop, because I would listen to TED Talks, they've got a red, pointer in that, and they've got all the pictures and all of that, and in any kind of speak. And I'm here just being myself, right? It took me a long time just telling my story, I've let go of that comparison. I'm not a TED talker. I'm Claudia. Here is the sum of me. Here's Karen. We're having fun. We're speaking some really great, speak here. A lot of lessons being thrown out there. But I think it was a really good personal lesson for me. And as I've gotten older, in fact, we spoke right after I'd had COVID twice. And I used to have thick, beautiful hair, and it fell out in the first COVID.
Me too.
But this was great because it grew back. It gave me that sense of, what I could lose, and then the gratitude that it came back. And now it has fallen out again a second time. It's growing, but it's really thin. And I'm used to, some nice, beautiful hair. It's just, you think about before you go on a show, I've periodically through the show, is it still a little puffy here and there or whatever? And I don't know. I think I don't struggle with that as much as I used to. And the words that were given to me because I was being gleaned in my sleep, in my dreams, I would find myself in front of an audience. Okay. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to speak, what do they say? Speaking as, one of the most scariest people listed, scariest thing.
Right. Yeah, that's what I had Neil on the show last week, and he said, what's the biggest fear in the world? And I said, well, I would say it's fear of death, but it's not, is it, Neil? And he said, no, fear of public speaking. And
yeah.
Right.
And it's like when you go to the other side and they're like, you need to share this, you need to talk about this. And I feel so in gratitude every time I wake up from spirit school. I'm like, oh, that was amazing. That was awesome. And my foundation is getting so strong. And I'm so grateful. Now I've got to tell people, and you got to get out there. And so they forced me in my dreams. I'm standing in front of an audience night after night trying, and they would they'd have a heckler stand up, and, well, you think this, and, and I was being shown how to handle questions, and basically it came down to everything that I was learning was just offer it back in love. Just, it's not something to fight over. Your audience is going to hear some of the things I have to say and go, star, or this or that, and go, I don't know. But if it doesn't resonate with you, then let it go, or put it on the mind shelf and let it sit there and resonate. But
Well, I think that the messages they're bringing are so pertinent and important for humanity at large, to overcome, like we've talked about, things like judgment and insecurity and all these things that we suffer from as humans. Like because I said to Claudia before we went live, they talked about the ETs and disclosure and the non-human intelligence and all that sort of stuff, because I know that Claudia loves listening to those. And do you want to tell them what they did to you about, like relaying that information?
Yeah, because here in this in these audiences, as I'm speaking, and I kept saying, what about aliens?
Yeah.
What about that type of thing. It's like, can I talk about that? No. It's like, what? Why?
Why?
And my message has been so much of the spirit school and those type of lessons, and whether it's just stepping over the line a little bit for me. I have had, and I'm going to share one of my experiences. They gave it to me, so I'm going to share it. Was I can't talk about all of it, but basically I was with sorry, I wasn't planning on this, so it's hard. I was with some.
I'm here with you, girl. I'm holding your hand.
Okay. They were amazing. They were so kind, and they wanted to give me a gift. And I was able to pull out of myself, because what they were going to do is show me who I was in God's eyes. I got to see who I was from God's point of view. This was a gift from these amazing, amazing galactic travelers that I think still wanting to teach me who I was, who this magnanimous soul that lives within this humble little old lady, you know. And I was able to see her, to see me as who I was, who I really was. And I said out loud to them, I looked and said, she's doing really good, isn't she? I'm so proud of her. So I was, I don't know. That's what I will share. When I woke up, I couldn't move. I'd been frozen, basically, not fearfully, but I laid there, and the only thing that could move was my little finger. It was twitching, but there was one word that they left me with, and it was Octorian. And it opened up a world for me of study, because I said it out loud on Facebook to a group, and they said, oh, maybe you're a starseed. And I went, starseed? What's a starseed? You know, little comments. And those of you out there, you hold pieces of a puzzle that for someone like me or anybody else that is searching and seeking, you may have an answer out there. So share it, because that opened up such a world for me. Now I'm studying what there is to study of Octorian, and what I may have to do with them. And I had asked my guide, may I please have more? I love this. I want more and more. Please give me more experiences, and I will talk about them and I'll share with them. And I told Karen earlier that I had a visual of those big jungle nets dropped over me. And I went, oh, I guess I'm not supposed to, I guess. And you had some interesting things to say about that.
Yeah, I was asking the mob why they netted you. And I love the Arcturians. They're a part of my mob as well, my team. I call them masters of mind. But I think that many non-human intelligence, the NHIs, that we call ETs now, are masters of mind. I think that we're really sloppy in our thinking. We go into fear and judgment and criticism and hate and resentment, and then we start down a trajectory, and it gains momentum, and then it can color the rest of our lives. But the Arcturians, or many ET races, know how to master their mind, because they understand the importance of how we create through frequency and vibration, and that thought holds frequency and vibration. But yeah, so Claudia was saying that they put a net over her when she started delving into the whole ET thing. And I asked my mob, why did you do that? And they said, well, she has a really important, we love her curiosity. We love that she is really into this subject, just like they love my curiosity. But she has a really important message to help people this is directly coming from the Arcturians, master their minds, master their emotions and their minds, and that your messages that you're bringing through Spirit School are so important on that level, because we can kind of get lost down the whole ET road, talking about lights in the sky and anti-gravitic technology and back engineering and government cover-ups. And, you know, we can go there and talk about that and argue about that and who's right and who's wrong. In the ET space in Australia, yeah, there's a lot of dissent. You know, everyone's like, you're right, you're wrong. Everyone's arguing. And they're wanting to teach us about unity and oneness and love and overcoming our negative programming. And that is so important as we move into the galactic era, that we really don the perspective of unity consciousness, quantum entanglement, and understand the power of our thoughts and stop arguing with everyone and you know, like hating and making people wrong, because the universe affords all perspectives, all points of view. No one's right, no one's wrong. It's just what you believe. What do you want to create? What do you want to believe? Yeah, so the Arcturians are probably part of your spirit teachers anyway. But they were saying that when I was asking them about the audience that Claudia attracts, not so much my audience, but are really looking for that information about who we are as spirit, what happens when we die, how do we live, you know, a more loving, unified life while we're here on planet Earth. And I've spoken to many people about life after death and said this on the show many times. When I asked my guides about what creates the most suffering here on Earth, they said your understanding of death, you believe, creates the most suffering. So there are a lot of people. Hi, there's lots of love coming online. Open-mindedness, yes, I can literally feel it when the Arcturians are above me. Exactly. Open-mindedness. What are you saying here, Mish? How do we not come back? Now that is a question. That is a question rooted in feeling like that this world is not an amazing experience. And many people ask that, like, I don't want to come back to this terrible world. What do your guides say to you? What have we got left? We've got 10 minutes left to go.
Okay.
What do your guides say to you about people who think, get me out of here and I never want to come back again? I can't wait to come back to tell you the truth.
If I can find it really fast. Let's see. Oh, let me see if I can find it. No, maybe.
Well, I'm gonna answer that while you look.
Okay.
Because when we understand the multidimensional, like quantum entanglement, when we understand the multidimensional nature of life and life after life, that there is no time and space, we understand that all our lives are happening simultaneously, past, present, and future. So those people, I remember a lot of people ask the Abraham Collective, you know, Abraham Hicks, you know, how do I not come back? I don't want to come back. And Esther would say, channeling Abraham, we'll carry your message, which is kind of a funny message because you're already back. If you're coming back to lead future lives on Earth, you're already here. And your soul knows it. Yeah. So
but this is, I put this in my second book. It's from Rod McCollum Jr. And he put this out on Facebook and I fell in love with it. This is the next one. This life is the next one you wanted to do. Please excuse my language. All of the shit, the heartache, the pain, the envy, confusion and anxiety, doubt and the fear. Mark my words, you will miss all of it. Yes, of course you'll miss the sunsets and sunrises, babies, lovers, the sun. That's obvious. And you think you're going to be so happy to be rid of all the difficult parts of your journey here, but you are wrong. You will absolutely miss all the crap, all that spice and flavor that is part of life, because you see the polarity. One has the good and bad, the sweet and sour, but all of it is the journey, and you miss all of it. You will long to be in form again and again. See, once you leave here, there is no pain, there is no suffering, there is no doubt, no confusion. Oh, stop and go. Oh, wow. Look how much I got caught up in all the drama. Look at how I got worried and felt unsure. I don't know what was going on then. If I only knew. Oh yeah, I guess I wouldn't have been the same experience if I knew what was going on. Ah, now I see. Now I understand. It's all so beautiful. It's so perfect. That was amazing. I thought it was so real. Well, that life was interesting experience. I wonder what I want to do next. What's the next adventure I can try? And so for you, the perspective is clear. It's the highest perspective of knowing all that's happening is what you wanted to experience. And so the question always ends up being the same. What do you want to do next? This life you have right now is that next one that you wanted to do. I thought that was so profound. I loved it.
Is that out of your book?
It's out of my book, Gifts from the Edge, Lessons from the Edge. Yeah.
Lessons from the
Yeah.
Edge.
And we were speaking earlier of an experience that I had, pre-birth experience. And basically I was sitting on a bench face in the clouds, basically. And it was time for me to come back, and I did not want to. I was facing one way and my guide was facing the other. And I was just like, I'm kind of the defiant teenager kind of feeling where it's like, oh, I just don't want to. It's so hard. I'm not good at it. And I thought it was funny that I had gathered up earth parts. I held up this plastic bag, and it had disgusting human excrement and urine and blood and vessels and just all the ickiness that gives us life. And I held it up and I said, see, life is on earth is so heavy, and it's so hard, and it's so yucky. And it made my guide laugh. I didn't win the argument, but it made him laugh because I was going to be holding up my soul group. It was time for me. Everything had been planned, and it was time for me to come. And I knew I had to. I knew I was going to, but that was my last ditch effort to be funny up there before that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I say to people, I've never heard a dead person say that was, terrible, like sort of judge the terrible things that happen on Earth. Even when you've gone through the most horrendous experience possible. Maybe you were in a death camp during the war and exterminated. Like, I've never heard a dead person say that wasn't for my benefit. That was a terrible thing that happened to me. I had a friend who was born thalidomide affected. We've only got a couple of minutes to go. She was sick most of her life. She died around 40, and she was very sick most of her life because a lot of her deformities. So that was the drug given to pregnant women in the 60s and all these deformed babies. Most of her deformed
thalidomide or something like that. Yeah,
thalidomide. Yeah, and were internal, and she was sick, and she had a really hard life. She was deformed on the outside as well. She was born into a family of beautiful looking people. She was beautiful, but she had some deformity. So there was all this judgment stuff. Anyway, long story short, when she died, she reminded me, like, even though she suffered so much during her life, she reminded me of the beauty of being physical. I was in the ocean just after I heard about it. What's going to make me cry? And she said, like, feel the ocean on your skin. She said, like, love all of life, the sensations of life. Like, she was talking to me about feeling the water, the coolness and the pressure and the waves on my skin as I was in the ocean. She said, for me, they're just a memory now. But the message she was relaying, that even though she had this really hard life, she missed it, like you said, like she from that perspective, like she missed it and loved it and could see the beauty of everything that she experienced. And we have a really different perspective, Mish, about being here on Earth when we're not. But here's the lesson from Spirit School, is to don that perspective, to retain that perspective of appreciation and love for all that we go through. It's not just appreciating the beautiful things that happen, but can we appreciate the terrible things that happen, both personally and globally? Can we understand it's all happening for our conscious evolution? Heidi's hit a 555. Love that. Colorado time. Cha changes. Yeah. Darling, you've got 2 minutes to go. What do you want to say?
How much? 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I have a quick experiment. It's a rice experiment. If you fill your life with darkness, and I say swearing, people who are just in a temperament of anger and that all of the time, my grandchildren and I filled 3 jars of rice, love, hate, and ignore. And I'm doing this really quick right now, but it was a cup of rice in each of these jars. And the hate jar, this is 2 years.
Wow.
It's disgusting. This is ignore. Ignore was the one that went bad first, but this even it's dry where that one was wet, so it's even further along. But if you fill your with love, the rice is still, it's gone liquid, but it's still white.
Wow, that's amazing.
We spoke love to this jar. We spoke terrible things to this one, and we just ignored this one. So be careful your environment. Be careful the way you speak, the way you treat others or don't treat others. It makes a difference in your world.
It makes a difference. Darling one, thank you so much for coming back on the show. And yes, you can get Claudia's books. If you want to support the show, I've got them on my website. Let me just share the screen with you quickly. Our time is up. All the links are on my websites, and if you buy them through our Amazon links, I get a couple of cents, and that helps support the show. And thank you so much for being back on the show, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Hey, Thirsty, I saw you there. Love you all. We could go for another 2 hours. Big love to you, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye for now. Bye for now. Bye for now. Here we go. I'm going to do
You're listening to ATP Media, Awakening and Expanding Consciousness with Karen Swain on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 FM and 105.3 FM. Syndicated radio hitting about 100.